Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And it's been a few days since my last video. I'm doing some things, I'm planning my move, and it's been pretty busy. And I'm planning also the documentary on the state of Texas. It is all recorded. It's like, I think 32 minutes. I edited the audio. Now we got to edit the video so I can get that out to you guys probably within a week or so. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be a great video. But I wanted to take a day out to look at the Senate races next fall because the midterms are approaching so fast. We saw Trump's rally in Ohio last night. It was pretty solid. He didn't make an endorsement in the Senate race, though, which is a massive disaster in the primary. If you look at that primary, I'm going to be doing a video on that soon as well. But there's 5 Senate races that will determine the outcome of the midterms. Can Republicans hold the Senate? 3 of them are extremely crucial. And the reason why New Hampshire is red is because I expect Sununu to run and win. If he does not run, then it would be blue, and Republicans would have to win 3 seats to get to 51. Because 50 would not cut it because Kamala Harris is the vice president, which breaks ties in the Senate. So they need 51 seats. They need to win 2 out of 5. If Sununu doesn't run, they need to win 3 out of 5. I do expect North Carolina to stay in the Republican column because of the national environment. Same thing with Florida, especially with Rubio. Say what you want about the guy. He is an electoral juggernaut in the state, just like Ron DeSantis will be. Ohio and Iowa, both of those will likely stay red. And on the Democrat side, Colorado as well will not exactly be the swing state it was, in 2014 when it actually flipped to the Republican column in a red wave year because trends matter and things definitely change. But 49 to 46. We're going to get into this, but first I have to tell you guys about my very good friends over at My Patriot Supply. Friends, we're looking at a full-fledged financial crisis in this country. Inflation is back with a vengeance, and it's going to get worse. The price of food, even if you can find any food, will soon be through the roof. That's why the smart thing to do is to buy long-term storage, emergency food you can rely on whenever things go bad, and that's why I recommend My Patriot Supply. They're America's #1 preparedness company, and they've served millions of customers just like you. Their mission is your survival, and their food costs just a few bucks per meal. It's delicious too, and stays fresh for up to 25 years. Get some now, and you'll never have to panic if something bad happens. You'll be fully prepared. Your food arrives quickly and discreetly at your doorstep, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Go to preparewithredeagle.com right now and save $50 on a 4-week food kit while you still can. That's preparewithredeagle.com. So these 5 Senate seats are going to determine 2022. Republicans got to go 3 for 5. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Brief analysis of the races. We're going to give a top 5 rundown today, and obviously we'll analyze the races even more as we get closer to the midterms. I've already done videos analyzing the Pennsylvania and Arizona Senate races as well, probably a few months ago or so. But Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, those are also important. But the first 3 we're going to get to are the 3 most crucial ones, and they're the ones that are not in the Southwest: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Now, Pennsylvania, it's important to look at this, and I'm going to be giving my endorsements as well, subject to change, but I will be giving my preliminary endorsements, who's the best candidate to run and win. So this is currently held by Senator Pat Toomey, a complete and total rhino. So pretty much anybody in the primary will be an upgrade over Pat Toomey. Ryan Costello will be the least amount of upgrade, but you have a lot of other candidates running that seem fairly interesting, and there's a lot of potential candidates as well. But it's important to note that so far, of everybody declared, Sean Parnell, I think, is the best candidate. He narrowly lost a congressional election in the Pittsburgh suburbs in 2020. He performed relatively in line with Trump, if not outperforming him in the district. And as a result, he narrowly lost. He didn't win it, but a solid all-around candidate, former veteran. He's already been on the national stage. He was at the RNC. Fairly Trumpian, you could say. I'd say right now he would be the favorite to win and receive Trump's endorsement. I'm not really impressed with the other candidates in the race here. In terms of Scott Perry, there was talks about him running earlier in the year that never really seemed to materialize. Would I support him if he jumped in? Yes, he's a little bit more controversial, but Fetterman is the reason why I think a controversial candidate could win, because Fetterman is that on the Democrat side. And if you want to look down to the Democrat primary, you have John Fetterman. He's the most high-profile candidate running in the race. He's the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. This is a far-left guy. He's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. He has interesting optics. He's like 6'9", big dude equals safe D, they say. I'm not entirely sure that that's true. But you could look at this race and you could say, okay, Democrats may be in trouble. Connor Lamb is probably the better candidate, but I don't even know if he'd win a primary because he's done things like wave an AR-15 on stage. He's kind of got this reputation among Democrats for being this moderate kind of guy, even though his voting record in Congress hasn't really been that moderate. But it seems as if Fetterman is going to get the nomination. In terms of hypothetical polling, he's ahead in the Democrat internal polls, even ahead of Connor Lamb. However, I'm not so sure this guy is going to do well in the suburbs, and some of the things he said in the past about Trump and his voters on Twitter are going to limit his margins in the rural part of the state. So that's why I kind of tend to discount some of these early polls that have him above Parnell 48-40. Personally, obviously, it's a Democrat internal poll. I think Parnell would beat Fetterman by a few points or so. And you could look at the election map in Pennsylvania, and you could see this here. The suburban margins with Parnell in the Philly area would be increased for the Republicans. I feel like outstate, I think the margins would roughly be in line with Trump. It is true that Fetterman is from the Pittsburgh area. Maybe he could do a little bit better in Pittsburgh. But as a result, so is Parnell. So maybe the gains there would be limited. We'd have to take a look at that later and see what would exactly happen. But in terms of the 2022 election, I think Parnell will do the best job on the Republican side, and I do believe he will defeat Fetterman. But it's a little bit too early to say. I think it's going to be a close race either way, but I do think Republicans are favored based off of Fetterman's past. So that's the first competitive race to analyze. These are really up for grabs. Democrats could win them. Fetterman may not be the nominee in Pennsylvania, but I think he's the most overrated candidate running next fall. So now we have to look at the race in Georgia. The Georgia Senate election. This is going to be a very competitive one. Definitely, if you look at the election in 2020, Democrats pulled off a victory in Georgia that was so narrow. Now, some people may say that this is a fluke, but at the same time, I really think that Georgia is a state that's going to move so far to the left. It's going to be the new Virginia, especially because the Republican Party in the state is extremely incompetent. But I do believe that 2022, with the national environment in the Republicans' favor, I do believe that they will have a very good shot at winning in the state of Georgia for the Senate election, potentially the governorship as well, at least holding on to that for 4 more years. And I think that the number one candidate is Herschel Walker. He is a former NFL player. He is a friend of Donald Trump. I do believe that since he kind of has this local celebrity type appeal, that he could defeat Raphael Warnock, because I think that Warnock, he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet and ties to far left groups, and that was not properly exploited by a robot candidate in Kelly Loeffler, and he had very favorable circumstances. I think in 2022, Republicans have a prime opportunity for a flip here, especially if Kelly Loeffler doesn't run, but even if she did, I think she'd lose the primary. The other candidates, Gary Black, he would be solid in terms of being electable. On policy, I think he's a little bit more establishmentarian. Kelvin King, another African-American leader who worked closely with Donald Trump, also is an interesting candidate, but I think Herschel Walker would bring the star power to win, and I think he's the guy. In terms of how he's going to win it, you could look at the electoral map here. I think he'd just do a little bit better than Donald Trump did in the suburbs, and I think he'd get Trump's base out statewide enough so he would be able to win the state of Georgia. So that's it for Georgia. I think we could kind of fill these in. I'm going to put them lean R. All these are going to be lean R. Doesn't mean I think Republicans are going to win them, but it just means that these are the key states that they need to focus on in 2022. So now we go to the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin, there's a Senate election that is going to be upcoming as well. Ron Johnson is the incumbent. We're not entirely sure if he is going to run. I do believe that he likely will now because Donald Trump endorsed him. Could we have gotten somebody better? Yes, but compared to a lot of the other people in the U.S. Senate, Ron Johnson, he's not the worst. He's not the worst. He's not the best, but he's not the worst either. And he is somebody who is electable, and he will hold the seat and be a pretty solid vote when he is in Congress. I think Sean Duffy, who's listed here as well, will run for governor, and I think he will actually win and beat Tony Evers. And I think it's going to be a good year for Republicans. I think that Johnson is going to be the nominee. And the other people on the list are not much better than Johnson. In fact, a lot of them are fairly establishmentarian to the point where I really do believe that Ron Johnson is that guy, and he has Trump's endorsement already, so I think he probably will win. Again, not the biggest fan of him, but he'll win. And I think he'll win by doing better in the WOW counties and still holding a lot of Trump's gains outstate as some of these lighter pink areas move to become more red areas over time. And I think he'll take the state by a few points, potentially even by 5 points or so, depending on who the Democrat nominee is. I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be at the moment. The state treasurer is running, but I really don't believe that she's going to be the most solid candidate that's going to destroy Ron Johnson. I don't think it's going to happen. So Wisconsin is another Senate seat that I do believe Republicans actually will hold by a solid margin, but it is still a key race. It actually might vote to the right of North Carolina if the cards are played right by the Republican candidate, which technically would put North Carolina on this list, but I don't think that Ted Budd is going to lose. I really don't. But now we have two other races, Nevada and Arizona. This is the pathway for Republicans to cross the Rubicon into 54 Senate seats to put them on a track to get to 60 at the end of 2024, which is entirely possible. Both of these are close states. Nevada's moving a little bit to the right, Arizona a little bit to the left, but Republicans have an opportunity here to gain both Senate seats back from the Democrats. And we're going to start off with Arizona in terms of who's running. I will show you guys right here. It was long believed that Andy Biggs would run for the Senate seat. However, I really am not entirely sure he will now that Mark Brnovich and potentially Blake Masters will be joining the race. Blake Masters is pretty solid. In fact, he's that more national populist style candidate. Great optics. He can win in Arizona. He will get the establishmentarian voters on his side as well in a general election. And I think Andy Biggs could do it too. But this really comes down to what is the Democrats' floor and ceiling in the state. I think both Republicans and Democrats have a high floor in Arizona, but I think the ceiling is a little bit higher for the Republican Party. And a lot of the early polling, it's so early, you can't really trust this. A lot of the polls we saw in 2020 were awful in terms of how they overestimated Mark Kelly in the state, as well as Joe Biden for much of the 2020 cycle until the end. But you could see this here. But it does seem to be shaping up to be a race between Mark Kelly and either Mark Brnovich or Blake Masters, maybe even Andy Biggs, we'd have to see. But Doug Ducey, he was going to be the guy, but the 2020 election happened and he fell out of favor with Trump, so it doesn't seem like he'll be the guy because he's not going to run. He already declined. That could change, but it's unlikely. Paul Gosar has declined as well. Not sure how electable he'd be, even though he would be awesome in the Senate. But Arizona, it's going to be a close state, going to go down the wire. I think that Mark Kelly is playing his cards right so far in terms of his voting record with things like the filibuster and H.R. 1. He's kind of being a cinema clone. And the Democrats are doing very well in terms of the state of Arizona in that regard because not a lot of Republicans are super angry with Mark Kelly. But, you know, we've talked about gun control earlier in the year. If gun control is a major issue, and if Republicans can make it a major issue, they will win the state of Arizona. Very pro-gun state. Mark Kelly is a very anti-gun individual. How do Republicans win? Do a little bit better in Maricopa County. That's the population center. Maybe a little bit better in some of the exurbs and continue the gains with Latino voters. That could definitely help as well. I think Republicans can win this. I'd say Democrats are probably a little bit favored at the moment, but I think they can win it. Don't be fooled by the red color. I'm not saying Republicans are going to win them. I'm not saying that the red states are all safe, because I think North Carolina is like a lean red state potentially, and so is New Hampshire. And I think Colorado, on the other hand, may be likely D, but it's going to stay Democrat for the most part. Not saying it's safe, but it's probably going to happen. So Nevada is the last state here. Nevada is very interesting because the Democrat Party in the state is in disarray. They're, being taken over by the far left. The Reid machine is gone, which is good for Republicans. And I think if you look at the state, it moved right in 2020. It trended right by a couple of points. Nobody's taking this into consideration. A lot of Latinos and working class whites in the state. And a lot of conservative Californians are moving there. They say Californians are moving, it's gone. No, they're conservative Californians. A lot of the people leaving the state are actually conservative, and they're actually pushing Nevada to the right. And Sisolak was a governor who was fairly moderate for a long time. He actually said, no, we need to keep the Electoral College. He wasn't really too bad until the lockdowns hit, and then everybody turned on him on the right. Everybody was angry at him. And anger motivates voters, especially in a midterm. So maybe you'll see a good governor candidate rise up and inevitably push the Senate race to the right a little bit. But Adam Laxalt, I think he's the guy. He is a former attorney general of the state, a statewide official. He only lost the governorship by a few points in a blue wave year. I think he could have a chance in a red wave year to win the Senate seat here. I think it's going to be very, very close. But Catherine Cortez Masto, she's not really the most notable Democrat. She is an establishmentarian Democrat, but I still think Laxalt, he can win. I think it's 50-50. I really do. But if Republicans win Nevada, they'd have 54. Now, keep in mind, if Democrats win these two races for some reason, and then they manage to take Pennsylvania somehow, and then somehow take Georgia, or maybe Sununu decides not to run for some reason, then Democrats would hold the Senate. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure that that is going to happen. I think Republicans will hold Wisconsin. There are already 250 seats by then, and they'd have to win 1 out of 4. Georgia, national environment pushed to the right. Yeah, I think they could obviously hold the Senate. I give them an 80% chance at the moment, a 95% chance at retaking the House, mainly thanks to redistricting, but also other things as well. I mean, there was this 538 report that showed that Democrats would have to win the national popular vote by 10 points to hold the House. It's pretty funny. That's not going to happen. I think Republicans are actually going to win in the national environment, and I think it's going to carry some of the swing states over to their column, especially in such a polarized environment. Remember, back in 2018, the swing states of Nevada and Arizona and Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they all elected Democrat senators. Republicans only prevailed in the swing state of Florida. In fact, Ohio, which isn't even a swing state anymore, they reelected a Democrat, and so did Montana. So the national environment and turnout matters. I think it's modest even to say Republicans have a chance at getting 54 seats based off of the fact that you have anger at the Biden administration. A lot of people are going to turn out. A lot of Democrats, electoral fatigue is real. They'll get complacent. And there's so much talk about, oh, Trump voters won't show up without Trump on the ballot. Well, you're going to see. You're going to be proven wrong because already we saw that in Texas. We saw it in Pennsylvania. The only case we didn't see it was New Mexico, and Republicans didn't even try, so that has to be taken into account. So as always, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.